8 centuries, millions of souls, and an incalculable volume of human endeavour have been put into one simple task: resisting the forces of hell. When the gates of Inferno first opened, tearing reality in two and giving the forces of hell a path to invade the planes of man, humanity's first instinct was not to cower in fear, but to fight. Armies were raised, and with sword and shield and spear did the forces of man march upon the invader, and met them on the field of battle, and pierced their flesh, and bled their life into the soil. Such burden and such horror can be a most fertile ground for fear, and fear is most readily combated by faith. But where faith and fear mingle, and where hell and earth collide, the rules of reality wear thin. And between the great churning cogs of war machines on both sides, things that were never meant to be seek to exist. The endless battles of the Great War have been fought over sacred sites. Countless ruined temples, church shrines, and mesquites litter no man's land, devastated by artillery, flames, and demolition charges. Graveyards and hastily dug military cemeteries are disturbed by shelling, and boots of soldiers trample over these sites unheeding to their original spiritual purpose. Wherever soldiers gather, there is need to pray, and to understand the incredible expanse and power of God, man has often felt the need to create representations of his greatness, or his mercy, his love, or his judgment. These vary from great relic tanks, festooned with images of the Lord, crosses, scripts with prayers adhered to their gunmetal carapaces with sanctified wax, or converted artillery shells used to represent the divine will of Christ. Some are more modest, tiny hand-carved wooden statues etched from the wooden shorings of the trench that offered safety, carved with the trench knife that offered strength against the hordes. Even the forces of hell seem to share this trait, driven to build their own mockeries of shrines, exalting their own dark and twisted lords, because even the demons and the damned have things that they need to fear. The very ground of no man's land is constantly consecrated and desecrated as control of trench systems, hills and valleys forever changes hands during great incursions. Sometimes the fighting is so fierce, the agony and the pain and the elation of war so fluid, that it is impossible for anyone to recall who really controls any of the battle lines. Forces hold or fall back, they charge or they falter, yet always they drag their faith with them. But the land remembers that which human memory does not. Over long years of battle, many heretics have fallen, fighting over hallowed ground, blessed by the faithful and consecrated in the name of Christ. The forces of hell that die in these places have found that there is no escaping the Great War. The earth will not suffer their polluted bodies and souls, denying them an avenue to return their souls to their hellish masters, forcing them to lurch to their feet and back into battle. Heaven is denied to them, yet their death ties their soul to earth, unable to go to hell either. Thus a new trench ghost is born. These shades still dimly remember their mortal lives, and their dead fingers grasp bolt-action rifles, and as grave cold commands of their long-dead officers echo across the battlefields, they gather into warbands of their own, that strike out to fight once more, since all rest is now denied to them. The condition of the trench ghosts fills them with bottomless hatred and envy for the living, and their warbands wage endless war against all the living, be they faithful or their former comrades who served the Inferno. Even the horrors of the Black Grail are more alive than these ghosts, who would exchange their cold misery for a chance to feel pain like the victims of the Grail do. They attack all intruders to the no man's land on sight, silently gathering when they sense anything that does not share their miserable state. Though it no longer carries any true purpose, the trench ghosts still feel the greed and compulsion to arm and equip themselves, and they loot the no man's land for every buried ducat or discarded rifle and sword. They pile such loot into great hoards of treasure in hidden places, and when there are no more enemies to fight, they trade with each other, perform military drills, even though these actions have no meaning or end goal. These undead warbands recruit lone wandering trench ghosts to their ranks, and their warbands can swell into virtual ghost armies that hold sway over large tracts of land, forming shadowy domains where the dead generals hold court as ghost kings. Even the seas are not safe from this undead plight, for those heretics who have died when fighting over sacred waters are now tied to become raiders upon high seas until Judgment Day. When the sun is high in the sky, the ghosts haunt the bunkers, pillboxes, and underground tunnels, there to ambush the unwary and foolish who travel into their lairs looking for respite. Their semi-corporeal forms, though extremely resistant, can still be destroyed by sword and bullet, and especially by fire. Hacked to pieces, burned or blown apart by ordnance shells, even the undead form of a trench ghost will eventually cease its struggle, and its will loses the ability to animate its remains. But even this does not grant them release. Their sentience still lingers in the shattered remains, never able to escape, eternally trapped between this world and the next. Years pass, and their semi-corporeal remains wither into ugly black soot, where their memories gnaw their tortured minds that has now lost all cohesion. Such living dust swirls around the battlefields of no man's land, and no one can hear the ghostly wails of agony emanating from within.